Hello, Year 7. This video will explain the requirements for your Term 2 Media Arts assignment. The task is to create a fake news report to demonstrate your understanding of how fake news persuades audiences by using conventions associated with the news and documentary genres. Your first task is to write a short news story, only about 150 to 200 words, of any topic of your choosing, and you can make it as absurd as you'd like. In your fake news story, make sure you use lots of specialist terminology. So that means words that make it sound like you're an expert about whatever the topic is. And the other thing that we've noticed about fake news is that it uses what are called hyperbolic expressions. So you should be making it sound very dramatic and over exaggerating things in your fake news report. The other thing you need to do is to, in your report, refer to two pieces of fake supporting evidence. And you actually have to then make this fake supporting evidence. But don't worry, it can be very simple. So I've given you some suggestions here for what you could make. You can make a fake image, a fake document. You can take some existing audio and edit it so it's taken out of context. You can easily make some fake statistics or data, or you can make another short little video interviewing someone um, and they're pretending to be an expert. So I'll show you some examples of what I've made to match something that I've written. You'll be recording yourself reading the fake news, and you can record yourself at school against a green screen. So we'll have a mobile green screen in the classroom, but there's also the green screen that's in the drama room underneath the classrooms. So we can book a time to use one of those. Um, we'll be using the shortcut editing software to put all your pieces together. So your recording of yourself, as well as the fake news evidence, as well as the little news intro and a newsroom style background. And we'll edit all that together into the fake news report. And in this video, I'll demonstrate how to do that. So when it's all done, we'll be doing what's called exporting the video. That means in Shotcut, you'll actually save it as a video. And then in class, you can submit your fake news report on my hard drive, or you can share a link with it if you've saved it to your OneDrive. And then what we want to do is to present our fake news reports in class, and they should be very funny. So on the task sheet on page 2, there's an example of fake news story that I've just come up with. So as you read through it, you'll see it's very absurd. The idea is that it's the bit of a conspiracy theory. Um, the Australian government is working hand in hand with McDonald's to deliberately make Australian citizens overweight and lazy so that they don't protest or challenge the government. So it's very, very over the top. I've got a reference here to an email, so I've made an email, a fake email, and I've also got a reference here to an image, and I've made that fake image as well. So what I will do is I'll read through this. I'll just use my laptop's camera to record myself saying this, and then I'll be editing in this fake image as well as this fake email. So the fake email was just made on Word. Here it is. So I've just made a table there and just used the existing email format that we're very familiar with, and just made up some titles here and grabbed an image from the internet, the Australian government coat of arms, and just made up some things here to make it look somewhat official. That's just an image there as well with another image inside it. So you can go to a little bit of trouble to make this if you'd like. So this email is apparently from the Department of Citizen Coercion to the McDonald's corporation head office, and in it I've just made up some fake stuff, some quotes here from a professor, and it's all, like I said before, quite absurd. So to try to make it look a little bit more real, even though it's fake, what I did was a screen capture of this page. So Control Shift and S will bring up the snipping tool, and I just screen captured that and then I pasted it on this second page here. And then what I did was went to picture format and just applied some of these artistic effects here. So I applied this effect, which makes it look like it's a bit of a dirty photocopy. and I also just changed the brightness and contrast of it just to make it look a little bit more like it was something that's maybe been sneaked out of a government office. So that was my supporting email, and I also made reference to a supporting image. So we've used in class this AI image generator, and that's really good for this assignment. So you type in your prompt. So I typed in Ronald McDonald shaking hands with government officials outside a McDonald's restaurant. And it spat out the image for me that I'll be using in my video, and that's the image that I eventually came up with. I had to give it a few tries, so AI is not quite perfect yet. You can see it's made a couple of little funny mistakes here, spelling the word McDonald's in an interesting way. Ronald McDonald is here, and the person he's shaking with, if you look closely, looks like he also has a bit of a clown face. But it serves the purpose. It's meant to be somewhat fake, but also just a little bit persuasive if people don't look too closely. So I spent a bit of time on this art AI picture generator. It's called Hotpot, and you can get a fairly decent result. So after you type in your prompt, you can choose your style, and the somewhat realistic uh, photographic style is this one, photo moody, but you might like to try something else as well. Black and white photo, that would also produce something that's a little bit realistic as well. Okay, so once you've got your all your pieces together, so here I've recorded myself saying my fake news story, and I just did it against a white ball at school, and I was able to use the um, shortcut background remover or chroma key effect to get rid of most of that background there. So I've also got saved in this folder. There's the fake email image and the fake image that I've made on the Hotpot AI image generator. And I've got the breaking news intro and the news background that we used in class as well when we were learning how to use Shotcut. So you can reuse those for this activity. If you'd like to find a different one, you can do that, but it's perfectly okay to use these as well. So now I'll just demonstrate how you can put all this together into Shotcut and edit your fake news story. When you open up Shotcut, make sure that the project is being saved to your hard drive video folder. So that's the best place to save any of your editing. Don't save it to one of your OneDrive folders. Sometimes there's an issue with OneDrive and the network just keeping up with your video editing demands. So just make sure it's in your videos folder, and you can create a separate folder as well within that if you'd like. So I'm just going to say select folder, yes, and I'm calling this fake news report. And this is a bit of a demonstration. I've already actually done a demo, so I'll be calling this one demo 2. So you can change this if it's probably on automatic here, the video mode, and that will be fine. But you can also set it to HD 1080p 30 FPS. That means 30 frames per second, and that's kind of standard video quality, and that will give you a really good result. So once you've added in those details, you can press start. And what we need to do is to open up this panel called the playlist. So the playlist is where we add in our resources. So the easiest way to do this is to open up your folder where you've saved all of your images and your recording and grab them all like this. So to do that, I just held down the trackpad and moved my finger across to select them all and drag them all at once into this here. Give it a minute. I think that'll be okay. All right, so now what we've got is everything we need in the editing playlist. Remember, video editing software is prone to crashing, so get into the habit of saving it all the time. So you can hit the save icon up here or just press Control S and keep saving your work. So let's start to build out this timeline here. So we've got the breaking news short introduction here. I'm going to shorten that down. We only need a few seconds of that. We've got the news background, so I'll drop that in there. Okay, and then what we need to do is put myself on there. So I'm going to go here to the menu, track operations, add video track. And so that's created video track 2. I'm going to take myself and drop myself down here and line it up with the background. So when I was recording this, it took me just a couple of minutes to get myself ready. So I'm just going to trim the first little bit there. So with that track selected, I can get the player head exactly where I want to make a cut. And then I hit this tool here, split, or you can hit S on the keyboard, split, and delete. And I'm just going to line that up again. So now it's starting off straight away with welcome to the real. So you can also do things like that little breaking news intro. You could fade it out, and that'll sort of make a little bit of a less jarring edit. All right, so what we need to do is to get rid of the background. If you've done this with the green screen at school, it'll be very straightforward, very easy. If you've done it with another solid color like white, you might have to fiddle with it a little bit before you get a somewhat decent result. We're not going for perfection here, Year 7s. We're just going for something that's good enough for this assignment. Okay, you're not getting marked on how excellent your video editing skills are so much as how you've made use of the news and documentary conventions. So with that track selected, I'm going to hit filters, plus, and I'm going to type in chroma. So the easiest effect to use is this one called chroma key simple. I just click that. Now, the default color that it uses is green. So what I'll do is select this eyedropper tool here and just move it over here and click on the color white. So because my skin also has a little bit of white pixels in it, it's taken out some of that. So what you have to do is just fiddle with the slider a little bit until you get a somewhat decent result. And you can see I can't quite get rid of all the white in the background, but like I said, that's good enough. I could keep fiddling with it by adding in other filters and getting rid of more of the background, but that's okay for now. All right, so as I'm speaking here, what I'll do at some point is make reference to some emails and the image. So what I need to do is add in another video track. So I go to here, the timeline menu, track operations, and add in a third video track. So I'm going to find where I've made mention of this email by my sources deep within the government. The emails, so it's roundabouts there. This email was McDonald's restaurants. This email. So I've just mentioned this email. So I'm going to go back to the playlist. I haven't saved it for a little while, so I'm going to hit save. I'm going to grab this email image here and I'm going to drag it down to where I've mentioned, at the point where I've mentioned an email. So we can see that doesn't look that great there. The email is covering my face. So what we can do is actually move that email off to the side and also shrink it down a little bit. So I'm going to, with the email image selected, I might just extend this because I talk about the email for a little bit. I'm going to hit filters again, plus, and I'm going to search for another filter called size, position, and rotate. So I'm going to click that. And now when that filter is applied, I can shrink it down and just move it over to the side here. Okay, and find a good place for that. And there we are. So as I mentioned the email will appear. This email was uncovered by my sources deep within the government. The email's subject line says it all. Project Big Mac. It goes on to detail the... Okay, so then that's fine. And then I'm going to find where I've mentioned the image. The government's decisions. In fact, citizens will be... highly secret project is happening right now, all across Australia, possibly in your own town. In this image of the newest McDonald's. So I've just mentioned in this image. So I'm going to go back to playlist, grab my McDonald's image there and drop it in. And again, I'll just extend it a little bit. And with that image selected, click filters, plus, and find that filter again, size, position, and rotate. You can see there's a little asterisk next to the filter that if you turn that on, it'll add it to your favorite list over here. And that's just a faster way of finding filters that you use quite often. So I'm going to select that filter and do the same thing as before, shrink it down a little bit, grab it by the middle there, and just move it over to the side. If you do make a mistake in Shortcut, you can just go undo. Sometimes when you do undo certain tasks, it will delete everything off a particular part of the timeline. So sometimes it's easier just to, if something's gone wrong, just delete what's on the timeline and then start again at that particular point. Okay, so that image will be on the screen, as I mentioned, the conspiracy in shaking hands with Ronald McDonald himself. This, I might just extend that a little bit. Okay, so that's basically all you have to do. And then it'll get to the end, and I'll just have to trim a little bit off the end of my video. So I've stopped speaking. I'll see you next time on the Real Deal News. Okay, so I'm going to select that image or the video of myself, split it, and delete the little bit at the end. And I might even just fade out there. Okay, so there's also this big long background here that needs to be trimmed. So this one I'm going to hit S to split it, select that bit on the end, and I'll do the same fade out there. All right, so that in itself goes for just 1 minute and 40, so we're not making a very long video. I'm going to save that. And the last thing you have to do, once you're happy with all of your editing, is to go here to export. So when we hit export, it comes up with lots of information that we can ignore and just have to click export file, and it will ask you or just check where it's saving it. So I'm going to go back to that videos folder and hit save. And over here in this panel, it's progressing through turning all of your editing into a brand new video. And if you're patient, it won't take very long. And then make sure that you do preview your video after it's finished to make sure it's all good and you don't need to go in and do anything else. All right, this next section is for those students who want to go that extra mile and attempt something a little bit more challenging than just basic editing. I'm going to show you how to apply what's called keyframes. And keyframes can be used to animate objects and to move objects around the screen at wherever you want them to go. So here we've got the part of my example news story where I've mentioned the email, and you can have the email there on the screen, and that's quite simple. But then I go on to talk about a specific part of the email. So I thought what would be good is if that email is on the screen, it is scrolling up as I'm talking about the email. So we can do that using keyframes. So I'm going to just move the playhead along a little bit and find where I start to talk about the specifics of the email. So it's around there that I start to quote this professor from the email. So what I'm going to do is go back to the playlist and I'm going to drag in another email there. So that's what you can do. You can drag these in as many times as you like. Just because you've used it once in the timeline doesn't mean you can't use it again. So here, this time what I'll do, I'm going to apply the same filter. So I'm going to go plus, and it's already in my favorites. So I'm going to scroll down, apply the size, position, and rotate filter. I'm going to, down here is where you can adjust the controls. Sometimes it's easy to adjust things down here more so than it is up here. So I'm going to zoom in, and this time it's going to cover up myself on the screen. Might even just zoom in all the way. And there's still this handle here that you can use to move it up. So I'm going to just move it up, and that's where the professor is starting to be quoted. So that's where it will start. And what I need to do to animate this or to move the document as I'm talking about it is to hit this icon here, and that enables keyframes. So I'm going to press that, keep saving it all the time. And by hitting that icon there, it's added in, it brings up this other panel called keyframes. And you can switch between keyframes and the timeline just by doing this. And this little rectangle down here is what's called a keyframe. So what that's doing is it's telling Shotcut that at that point in the timeline, this is where that document is or that image is. So as I'm reading it, what I want to do is to make it scroll upwards a little bit. So I'm just going to move the player head along a little bit. I'm going to go here to the controls, and these two values here, that controls where the image is horizontally, and this one controls where the image is vertically. So if I just start to press downwards here, you can see it's very slowly scrolling upwards. So that's one way you can do it, or you can just type in a value here. So I'm going to just guess that maybe it's going to be around about there. I might even scroll it up a little bit further. That looks good. So you can see when I've made that change, it's added in a second keyframe here. And what will happen when I play this back is that the document will scroll upwards. University states by the year 2030, Project Big. Okay, you can see I'm still talking about it. So what I can do is go back to the timeline and just extend that of Australian citizens. It goes on to say, so I'll just find where I've finished talking about it. Expected, citizens will be less inclined to protest against the government's decisions. In fact, citizens will be less inclined to do anything at all. So I need the image to last at least that long. So that's where the quote finishes. I'm going to go back to keyframes. And that second keyframe that I put in there, I can grab it and I can move it all the way to the end. So it's going to slowly scroll up as I'm speaking. By the year 2030, Project Big Mac aims to control the diet of 50% of Australian citizens. Okay, so you can see the effect of doing that. So I'm going to hit save there and go back to the timeline panel. And I could do something similar to the image now. My image has moved because I've got something else switched on there, which won't happen to you. So I'm just going to find the place where that this image belongs. So I think maybe what could be good here is if that image zooms in a little bit from being in the corner there, I could zoom it in, so we can get a bigger, closer view of that image, and then I can make it zoom back to where it was there. So I'll just extend it a little bit. Is conclusive proof that the government is working. All right, so with that selected, I'm going to go here to the keyframes, bring my player head with Ronald McDonald, and I wanted to sort of zoom in by that point. So this one's a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to hit this little stopwatch icon here that will activate the keyframes. So it's put a keyframe in there. Now I'm going to go back to the start of that clip and put another keyframe in just by hitting the icon, the stopwatch icon there. So that's telling Shotcut that throughout this duration, I want the image to be there, and I still want it to be there at that point, but I want it to zoom in and move across the screen fairly quickly at that point. So when the keyframes are close together and you've made a big movement with whatever the image or document is, it'll move fairly quickly. So I'll just preview that. With Ronald McDonald himself. This is conclusive proof. All right, and that worked fairly well. And I want the image to stay there for a little while. So I'll just let it play. I'll put another keyframe in there because that's still saying to Shotcut at that point in the timeline, I want the image to stay there. but then I'll want the image to zoom back to the corner where it was. So I'm going to shrink it down and move it back. This is conclusive proof that the government is working with the McDonald's. Right, and make sure you save it. So that's slightly more challenging, but you can see it does create a somewhat more engaging video if you've got some images that are moving around like that.